And greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome here to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast alongside Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin. I'm Steve Deace. We're brought to you by First Cup Coffee Company. They've got a flavor for every freedom-loving American. And if you want to try it today, don't do it just because they have your values. In fact, don't do it for that reason at all. Do it because it's a hella cup of coffee. One of our values with our worldview, excellence. Excellence is supposed to be one of our values. We should be striving to excellence. So number one, it's an excellent cup of coffee. According to Aaron, he would know it's one of his food groups. Then number two, you get a value added because it shares your values as well. They put the roast on date right there on every bag, so you know it is shipped to you within days of being roasted, and you'll get a discount with the promo code Deace at firstcup.com. That's firstcup.com, promo code Deace for First Cup Coffee Company at firstcup.com, promo code Deace. Also want to remind you about the new show we just launched with, I would say, maybe the best activist on our side that we have alive today, and Christopher Rufo. Rufo and Lomez just launched here on Blaze TV, along with Jonathan Lomez Keeperman. We are very excited about this show. Let me give you an example. About 40 minutes ago, Chris Rufo just tweeted this back to Pam Bondi, our essentially do-nothing attorney general. I mean, if the goal here is to audition, for a nice gold parachute, contributor give. You want to be the next, what's that albino, all hat, no cattle dude from South Carolina? What's his name? Gowdy. Trey Gowdy. Okay, yeah. If you just want to be the female, you want to be, Trey Gowdy in a bra. Pam Bondi's doing everything right. Agreed? Okay.
Yep.
Want to save America? Ish. Let's say bare minimum. Bare minimum, is that fair?
It's fair.
The bare minimum of what's expected from her to save America is what she is doing in terms of deed. Bare minimum. All right? And so she's out there talking tough about Antifa being a, quote, existential threat to our nation after seeing what they polled on Turning Point USA at Cal Berkeley the other night. Chris Rufo tweets back to her, quote, "This is great rhetoric, but the real measure of success is not tough tweets, but concrete actions that will shift the incentives against left-wing street terrorism like midnight raids, mugshots, case numbers, nonprofit status revocations, asset seizures, inmate rosters, etc." Amen. So if you want to catch Chris Rufo's new show, it's available right here on Blaze TV. You can also watch it on YouTube if you want to try it there now. YouTube.com/Rufo and Lomez. YouTube.com/Rufo and Lomez. All right, coming up on today's program, it'll be your turn to play some buy, sell, or hold. Then it'll be the turn of the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, Daniel Horowitz, and I'm going to ask him a simple question that may not have an easy answer. If you could advise Trump and Republicans to do three things right now about affordability that they can realistically do with the current margins we have in Congress and the fact that we're still in the Supreme Court is the supreme being mode. So with those realities, the realities on the ground, if you could advise them, here are three things you could do to address the affordability crisis in America right now, what would it be? We'll get to that and more with Daniel Horowitz coming up later on in the show. But let us begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by...
And the Rockets!
Yeah, seems to be the theme of President Trump's interview with Laura Ingraham this week. The following clip went viral yesterday on the topic of H-1B visas.
If you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of foreign workers.
You also do have to bring in talent.
We have plenty of talented people here.
No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well, I'll give you an example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made batteries all their lives. Making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't work that way.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent engaged in some damage control this morning.
And the president's point here is, we can't snap our fingers and say, you're going to learn how to build ships overnight. We want to bring semiconductor industry back to the U.S. There are going to be big facilities in Arizona. So I think the president's vision here is to bring in overseas workers where these jobs went.
Who have skills.
Who have the skills, 3, 5, 7 years to train the U.S. workers. Then they can go home. The U.S. workers fully take over.
Messaging out of the White House hasn't all been bad. Here's Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller providing a projection of confidence and concrete windows when people could start to feel some economic relief.
Thanksgiving meals are going to be 25% cheaper, but President Trump is not content with that. He is fighting to bring down the cost of every single consumer and household good, and the tax bill is going to be a huge part of this, because when we make life more affordable for our companies, for domestic industry, for domestic manufacturing, with 100% expensing, with the largest tax cuts in history, then prices are going to keep coming down. This also involves energy affordability. No president in history has done more, Larry, you know this so well, to make energy more affordable. President Trump is leaning into energy affordability. We are building new pipelines for the first time in the northeastern corridor of this country. You've seen that we have a major pipeline that's moving through, the Nessie pipeline, more to come. And the president is also making nuclear energy, modern, safe, reliable, clean nuclear energy to power the future.
House of Representatives is reportedly set to vote today on the Senate deal to reopen the federal government. You may recall a few weeks ago that story about Dominion voting systems being sold to a former GOP election official. Well, my, how the turntables. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has some thoughts.
We do know that one of his friends has purchased Dominion. So it's going to be really important for us to educate all states that we can to make sure that their Secretary of States are like, we don't want the Dominion machines, because I personally believe that ally purchased Dominion so that he could potentially play with the machines, because we know that they're trying to cheat by changing the lines.
In other news, and according to reporting from Megan Basham at the Daily Wire, the head of the counseling department at Biola University, it's of course one of the largest evangelical universities in the United States, has declared herself an LGBTQ ally and filed an amicus brief in favor of Colorado's so-called conversion therapy ban, which prevents Christian counselors from using biblical teaching to help clients end unwanted LGBTQ behavior and identities. Dr. Michelle Willingham, head of Biola's Rosemead Counseling Center, identifies herself as LGBTQ allied on the website mentalhealth.com. Biola says Willingham signed the brief in favor of the wicked Colorado law in her individual capacity as a private therapist without consulting or informing the school. Staying in California, a video emerged from that TPUSA event at UC Berkeley earlier this week, showing a pro-America Charlie Kirk supporter getting mobbed by Antifa before one individual stole his necklace and was seen subsequently beating the TPUSA supporter bloody. That Antifa member was arrested and charged with assault and robbery. The violence at UC Berkeley prompted another strongly worded statement from Attorney General Pam Bondi. And finally, Joe Biden made a surprise visit to a Northern Virginia restaurant last night, and the young man towards the bottom of the screen here is all of us. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Patriot Mobile. You know, freedom has never been free, and lately we've been reminded of just how high the cost can be. Growing violence is meant to shake us, like what you just saw in that video. But it should also strengthen our resolve to never back down. That's why Patriot Mobile exists. For over the last 12 years, they've been defending faith, family, and freedom while providing the same or even better premium network access on all 3 major U.S. networks than you'll often get from the communist companies. Unlimited data, mobile hotspots, international roaming, they do it all. When you switch, you don't sacrifice quality of service. You can actually understand the person you're making the switch with. They've got a U.S.-based customer service team, hundreds of thousands, including, every member of my household, all belong to Patriot Mobile. And I've seen firsthand that they take what we pay them and reinvest it back into the values that we share with them. All right. So make the switch today. You might be thinking, hey, I'm locked into a bad contract. I can't get out. They've got contract buyout programs as well. Keep your number, switch your number, keep your phone, upgrade your phone. But make sure you use my name, Steve, as your promo code when you make the switch today, because you'll get a free month of service when you do. At patriotmobile.com/Steve. That's patriotmobile.com/Steve. Using the promo code Steve at patriotmobile.com/Steve. So continuing with the theme I had yesterday, there are just moments when you're watching your favorite team play, you want to win every single game, right? You're not like rooting for them to lose. But there are moments when they're clearly not playing well. And you're like, well, why are we continuing to do this? It doesn't make any sense. And you get frustrated when you're watching the game, right? Because you can just see, why are we continuing to do what does not work? What would be the point in that? And then sometimes it might be on a given night, a player's not having a great night. We're human beings. Nobody's perfect. Michael Jordan, Tom Brady won more championships than everybody else, but they didn't win them every single year, right? Every single year. Did they win championships every single year, Todd?
No.
They won more than anybody else, so they're the GOATs, right? Okay. But did they win it every single year? No. We're not perfect vessels, okay? This has not been a good, Donald Trump is the GOAT. But this has not been a good week for Donald Trump. And it's Wednesday. This has not been a good week. And sometimes you look at your bench and you're like, hey, when that guy was in, good things were happening. So why is he just sitting on the bench? Let's get him in the game. Changes the energy of the game. He does something different, something we need. Let's get that guy in the game, right? You do that sometimes with your favorite teams. You ever done that before? Why is this guy on the bench? Let's get him in the game, right?
Sure.
Okay. Stephen Miller is one of those guys. When Aaron, you mentioned before the show that he was going to be in the montage, I was like, Eureka, where's this guy been for like the last month and a half? And not coincidentally, why has this been like some of the worst messaging from the Trump White House we've ever seen? In the last month and a half, how many times have we seen either Caroline Leavitt or Stephen Miller? Just anecdotally, what'd you think?
Seen Caroline just at her weekly thing. I've seen Stephen Miller here or there, but not to this degree that we've seen the last 24 hours or so.
First few months of the Trump presidency, how often did you see him?
All the time.
More.
All the time?
Much more.
Yeah. And hey, listen, man. Michael Jordan was the greatest of all time. He was also 6'6" and not 7'2". So you didn't ask him to guard Patrick Ewing in the post in those Eastern Conference finals. You didn't do that. Because Ewing was just going to turn around based on the laws of physics and dunk it on him. Donald Trump cannot be great at everything, and he's not, and no one is. This is clearly, when things are scuffling, that is, in my opinion, not Donald Trump's strength. The natural communication of empathy is not a natural thing for him in a professional setting. What we did see in a personal setting at this time last year with all those interviews and those long-form podcasts is in the personal setting, he's actually quite good at it and really connects well with people. But in a professional setting, a guy who is arguably the greatest salesman in American history, and so he's always in Glenn Ross mode. And when you're always be closed and you're never like, well, I don't know that that's really the product you're looking for right now. No one ever does that. Not if you're in Glenn Ross mode. Nobody does that. And right now, I think the messaging of we don't have enough talented Americans. We need to import 500,000 Chinese to keep historically black colleges open. Okay. This is the greatest economy ever. And oh, look at all the gold I just renovated the White House with. Holy cow. The Democrats at that point, they just burnt out. They just ran out of commercials. They were going to cut off that interview and just had to turn it off. All right. Eventually, even at a pagan, bloodlust orgy, you satiate yourself. You're spent. There's nothing left. Your orifices have been doused. Your glands are empty. There's nothing left. And you just eventually, even at the pagan orgy, you're like, I'll be back tomorrow. There's only so many commercials off of one interview Democrats could cut. Because they could cut all the commercials for next year off of that one interview. That was bad. Wow. George W. Bush called and said, hey, whatever you do, don't say this. I'm suspending free market principles to save the free market. Just don't do that. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk's ex accounts from last Christmas called and said, yeah, don't go out there and say there's not enough talented Americans. Don't do that. That's not a good look. Don't do that. So you need somebody to rally people. We're going to stand up to the evil. Trump, in his own way, is almost Churchillian where that is concerned. But at moments where there's some scuffling and things aren't going well, yeah, that's why head coaches, even Bobby Knight, had assistants. Okay? So, a lot more Stephen Miller. What'd you see Stephen Miller do, by the way? What did I say yesterday? If you're going to come out and tell people this is the greatest economy, but you know there are things in place that you are confident will turn it around, then don't message negatively because it won't matter anyway. Because if you suck and it doesn't work, you're dead and doomed anyway. So you might as well message affirmatively while pointing out these things are going to work, right? Right? That's what I just said yesterday, right?
Yes.
What is exactly what Stephen Miller did in the clip that Aaron just played. Exactly what I said yesterday. Pointed to specific things that are working and will work better and say they need to work better. You know, my Pistons, when I was a kid, had this player come off the bench named Vinnie Johnson. And he was known as the microwave. All right? And, you know, hey, we had two Hall of Fame guards in Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, so there wasn't going to be a lot of minutes for Vinnie night to night. But even, again, guys that are heading to the Hall of Fame have off nights. And you'd bring Vinnie Johnson in, man, he was known as the microwave. He'd just come in and just start hitting shots. Can't tell you how many nights on the old pass sports system on those desolate wintry days in the state of Michigan, the cockles of little Stevie's heart were warmed by Vinnie Johnson coming off the bench at the old Silverdome or the old Palace to bail out the bad boy Pistons on a night when the buckets just weren't falling for anybody else. That's Stephen Miller. Keep him in the game. Keep him in the game, okay? Let me pull a Bill O'Reilly, but actually give a good suggestion, not... Have you thought about an affordability czar? That reminds me of like in Elf, when James Caan's writers come to him and say, we've got an idea. Have you thought about another writer? Okay. Here's a really good idea. All right. Keep Stephen Miller in the game. You brought him in off the bench, hit his first shot. Probably going to hit 5 or 6 more. Okay. And right now, a lot of the rest of the team's kind of cold. Okay. So keep him in the game. Can I get an amen on that?
Yep.
All right. A lot more Stephen Miller right now and bring the head coach back out when things clearly start to turn. All right. Because right now, not in his wheelhouse. And nobody's perfect. Thoughts on that before I want to do some math?
We're day 3 of this. Does this mean it's officially a trend and you're no longer flirting with optimism anymore?
Actually, the fact they put Stephen Miller back in the game has me contemplating that optimism. I'm not flirting with it, but it's in the hopper. Okay? Because this is an exact environment for somebody like him. His entire political MO is coming up from the ranks of the right that addressed the sorts of economia issues that are unique to Trump. He is essentially he is the Chesterton of Trump's entire ideology in terms of his ability to itemize it, intellectualize it, and communicate it. So keep him in the game.
You're talking mostly messaging. How much are you worried that it's not even just a messaging problem?
I'm quite worried. I'm quite worried, but I also can't control the fact that we decided to take the last 30 years off of voting in primaries, and we're surrounded by a bunch of nutless, progressive, feckless hack Republicans. I can't control that. I can't control that we're going to, go into a 7th decade of treating the Supreme Court like the supreme being. I can't control that. I mean, what can we control 100%? What is 100% within our control? Our messaging, okay? And half of this game is 90% mental. So it's not the only part of the game, but the messaging is the biggest part of the game. That gets into the psychology of how you communicate with people, connect with people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Aaron, you have any thoughts?
That's what I was communicating before the show. I'm not trying to obfuscate. I'm not trying to play with kitty gloves here. I'm just kind of trying to look at the world the way that it is. And the way the world is right now is that the leadership in the Republican Party, despite the fact that they control Congress, and I'm using air quotes for those of you listening, the fact that they control Congress doesn't really mean anything legislatively, at least not unless there's some sort of revival in Congress amongst Republicans coming up very quickly down the pike. I think the Trump administration, for the most part, has kind of come to the end of the rope of what they can do executively. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at things the same way. What I expect now from the Trump administration is impeccable messaging, using the bully pulpit to the utmost capability. Maybe that's not going to be enough in the end, but it is something that you can control every single day, day in and day out. And what we've seen from the last week, I criticized Scott Bessent. He was kind of doing the whole nothing to see here, everything's great thing a couple of weeks ago. He's kind of changed, and he's come out and said, you know what, we're not going to do the gaslighting. He said that we're not going to gaslight the American people like the Biden administration did. But what we've seen from Trump messaging the economy, saying last week, I don't want to hear about affordability, saying this week we have the greatest economy ever, using the Walmart CEO's 25% less for a Thanksgiving meal. And then, well, it doesn't include as much. Blah, 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 blah. It's just not been good. It's not been good. You heard Stephen Miller there say, hey, Thanksgiving meal is going to be 25% less, but that's not good enough. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was great messaging from Stephen Miller because he's pointing out concrete things that people can measure whether or not they're actually achieving their goals. Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving, tax bill, coming online a little bit further down the road, energy relief. These are things that are measurable by the American people. Just telling them that I don't want to hear about affordability and everything is great is not measurable when it doesn't, even if it is just vibes, the American people don't tangibly feel that yet.
Amen to every word. So let's get on the theme of economy and what I posted last week that, even economic issues, we've got to speak to the soul, right? And I know this is a big theme for you. Yes. This is a big theme for Stephen Miller, for example. Okay. That when we have to start understanding that now we're not just talking about widgets and profit margins. We're really getting down into the nitty gritty of what is the actual American way of life in terms of, am I just a widget, a spoke in a machine, for a corporatist machine that now no longer is not even American, but a globalist entity that will then turn around and fund values that will inject rot gut into my very children? Or is it a means by which I am using the gifts and skills and talents that God has given me to perform the roles God has set before me, particularly as a man, as a provider, protector, defender, and the sorts of significance and purposefulness that I receive as a human being by fulfilling those roles capably and ably, right? That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
All right. So right before the show, I decided to have fun with Grok on H-1B visas. All right, just follow along here. I asked Grok, what is the minimum salary requirement for someone to receive an H-1B visa in 2025? Can you guys guess what the answer is?
Too low.
There isn't one.
There's not one at all?
There isn't one.
Well, that's too low.
Yep. There isn't one. One does not exist. So without that, here's why that matters. Without that, we have really no built-in safeguards against fraud. Right? Let's say the president, there is some truth to what the president is sadly saying in that we did take an entire generation here in our education system and decide math and science was not important. Teaching you how to sodomize your classmate.
Exactly.
Teaching you, where the clitoris and G-spot were, literally, okay? That was way more important than teaching science and math. So the idea that there's not going to be some level of generational recompense for whatever the hell satanic, youth ministry the government schools became in the last generation, there's going to be some recompense for that. There's going to be some issues with that, for sure, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then how do we weed out something we really need as opposed to corporations just gaming the system? Well, there needs to be a minimum salary. Should be at least like $200,000 a year, at least. If these are such high-skilled jobs that cannot be fulfilled by too many Americans, then they should be at a premium, don't you think?
At least.
Said salary should be at an absolute premium. So it should be at least $200K a year. And that would go a long way towards weeding out who's abusing the system and who's not, in my view. But right now, there's not any minimum. So that's step one. Stick with me now. All right? No minimum salary. All right. Next question I asked. What is the average salary of an H-1B visa? Grok came back and told me $140,000 a year to $160,000 a year is the average salary. I then asked Grok, what is the median household income in the United States as of right now? And that number is $80,610 a year is the median family income in the U.S. by household. So to put this another way, the average H-1B visa holder is making, on average, about twice what is the median family income in the United States. No salary requirement, which is a built-in mechanism to weed out fraud. And on average, they're making twice what is the median household income in the United States of America. That, I'm just telling you right now. This is an Operation Paperclip where you bring in 50 Nazi scientists to teach you how to beat the Soviets in the Cold War. This is how you replace an entire generation of workers. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because I kept asking questions. All right. Next question I asked. What is the average education of someone currently unemployed? Grok gave me a lot of different explanations as to how he came up to this answer, but as of August of 2025, 11.7% of the unemployed have less than a household or less than a high school diploma. 31.8% are high school graduates with no college. 25% or 1.2 million people. Keep these numbers in mind now, the whole numbers. 1.2 million people have some college or an associate degree. 1.5 million people are unemployed with a bachelor's degree and higher. So keep these two numbers. 1.2 million people with some college or an associate degree unemployed. This is as of August. 1.5 million people with a bachelor's degree and higher unemployed. So I asked Grok one more question, and what do you think it was?
How many H-1B visa holders
came in
via the university system?
My man, how many H-1B visas are there currently in the workforce? That's exactly what I asked. Grok says the number, 730,000. Now, let's say, like the battery example that Trump is citing is correct. Right now, we have 1.5 million Americans with a bachelor's degree or higher that are unemployed. That is twice the total amount of H-1B visa holders we have in the country right now. By the way, that would be among the largest cities in the United States of America, top 20, 25 city. If we just took all the H-1B visa holders and put them in a city, it'd be a top 20, 25 city in terms of population in the country. So even if, let's say that that's literally true, we cannot train the 1.5 million Americans with bachelor's degrees or higher on the unemployment line. They cannot be trained with that level of education. They cannot be trained to work at a battery manufacturing plant making on average $140,000 to $160,000 a year. I'm sorry, that does not add up. And we're the movement that's supposed to be the answer to this. We went over these people that we couldn't, since they were called Reagan Democrats, we went decades and couldn't get these kinds of people, working kind of class, middle class people to vote for us. We got them to vote for us because Democrats decided it was way more important to serve communist and environmental interests than it was coal jobs in Pennsylvania. And we promised them we were going to speak to this. And our solution is, you're not smart enough. There's twice as many people on the unemployment line that have at least a bachelor's degree than there are total H-1B visas in the country. Todd, tell me, those people cannot be trained to make batteries with a bachelor's degree or higher? Do you buy that? Just on its surface, do you buy that?
It seems odd, but also odd is the fact that two red states and the White House in the last month have told me that I need to recognize a happy Diwali. So things are getting very weird and the dots aren't connecting on a number of levels.
It's malpractice too, because their messaging flies in the face of some of the things that they've actually done.
Right.
They actually curbed H-1Bs a little bit, not enough in my estimation. It's just bizarre.
But if you're saying out loud like Bessa did, 3, 5, 7 years required for the training to catch up, that is such an admission to the point of economy of cultural failure. Like he said it so casually, but do you know how debased that is for that reality to even exist in the so-called greatest nation to ever exist and the leader of the free world, that we basically can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time? That's what the admission is.
And if that is the case, then explain to me why this is like not the number one investment issue on a government level. Then what the hell else are we spending our tax dollars on? If it's not, then we have to close that gap. That's the number one gap we have to close, what you just said, citing that.
Yes.
More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Moxie Pest Services. They are celebrating their silver anniversary, 25 years in the pest control business, and this is one of the key times of year because when those leaves change, the mornings get crisp, things get cold, those pests, they look for shelter. And a lot of times, it can be your very home, and you're going to need to do more than just spray and leave with something you get at the hardware store. And that's where Moxie comes in. And that's why they've been around, because they know what they're doing. That's why they've been around for 25 years. Also, they make sure customer service is not a lost art. They follow up with their technicians every single day to make sure they're not the new pests in your home after they got rid of the old ones. And just to prove themselves, they are so confident that you're going to want to stick with Moxie long term. They're offering you your first pest control service for just $25 in honor of their silver anniversary. If you go to moxieservices.com/Steve, MOXIE, use the promo code Steve, moxieservices.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve for your first pest control service at just $25 at Moxie Services, MOXIE, moxieservices.com/Steve with the promo code Steve. All right, let's get to it. It is your turn. It is time for some buy, sell, or hold. Todd and I, after Aaron shows us these submissions that we have not yet seen, you and I will either buy it or we will sell it. Maybe offer a reason, in my case, a likely rather lengthy one, of why we are making said choice. Hold is an option. You can choose to hold. All right? But if you do, nah, that's too bad. I can't do that. That one's too... No, we can't do that. Can't do that either.
You're in a dark place.
I am. That's why I'm editing right now, live on the air. I'm in a dark place right now. Team's not playing well. Okay. Not the fun part of the game right now. So yeah, I cannot project my black pilling onto you. That would not be fair. Right. Just because our...
When has that ever stopped you before?
Just because our favorite team's standard of play is not at the level we're accustomed to or happy with does not mean I should punish you thusly for such substandard performance. So how about we just make it that you've got to help Lindsey Graham clean out his Grindr account. How's that?
No.
Yeah. Because he'll have to tell you, yeah, I met that one. That's not going anywhere, right? You'll have to listen to why he...
I understand.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Point made.
All right, Aaron, go ahead.
We'll start with Jason Rowland. Crystal ball of certain truths. Let's just take these one by one. Nothing of importance is done legislatively before the midterms.
I fear that is more likely the case than not, so I'm going to buy, unfortunately.
Same reasoning, buy.
Democrats will win the House in 2026.
I still think it's too early for that. Republicans are doing relentless amounts, or trying to anyway, relentless amounts of gerrymandering around the country. So I still think it's too early for that. So for now, I will sell.
Same reasons I will also sell.
So next one is probably a sell as well. Impeachments of all types reign until 2028.
Well, I will buy because if the former event happens, that is absolutely what is next.
Agreed.
For shizzle. Yes.
Mayor Mamdani turns New York City into a hellmouth.
You want a really Vanta Black answer? I mean, come on. Do you want a really Vanta Black answer?
Yeah.
Because I am in that kind of mood. I'm going to sell. And the reason why is the people who are now in control of New York City, this is their worldview. And I could actually see things be perceived to have been improved before the long-term ramifications of natural law violation come to fruition. You see what I'm trying to say? This city has already operated under rent control, price control, every form of subsidy, every form of progressive policy trope you could possibly imagine. All right, there's a reason why a Mamdani can get elected in 2025 and could not have gotten elected in 1985 or 95. I mean, the table is set. You know, take away his Islamist foreign ties, and make him just another, affluent white New York, NYU grad, same age, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Grew up, parents wealthy in Manhattan his entire life, saying all the same things. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
All right. That worldview this is the next stage in that devolution. All the things he is saying are not really that radical for how life in New York really is. The radicalization comes from who he is. That he's not some kid from an affluent white NYU, parents, thought Cloward and Piven were prophets when they went to Columbia, also in New York. All right. It is that he is a foreigner. It is that he's an Islamist. That's where But if it was in another package, if everything he was saying outside of the foreign element and the Islamist element was put in another package, it'd just be Kathy Hochul. It'd be very familiar to what New Yorkers are used to voting for. So do not be surprised in the immediate of the next few years if it actually looks as if on the surface things are getting better. Because now they're just going to go whole hog with what they've already done. They're now just going to go and flat out consummate the relationship to impregnation now. Now, eventually, the natural law has its way. Okay, but look, our country dodged the ramifications, or thought it did, of the natural law for about 40 years. And now we're seeing all these social contagions and pathologies are now all coming and hitting us all at once. And that's what has your young men thinking groyperism. Maybe that's the answer. All right, because these things are all hitting at once. I could foresee that at least in the immediate, it looks like it's morning in New York City again. Don't be surprised if you see that. So I will sell.
Depending on the point of view, you can buy or sell. I'll just take the other side, buy, because we've been talking about Trump and the Republicans' failures at messaging. Well, those who control the messaging on the leftist front will be happy to paint the kind of picture that is like in Britain right now. I'm told there's basically a part of the map of London that is still where American tourists want to go. If you go there, you feel like it's just the Olympics are being held, but every place around that is a hellmouth. So I think it's a both and. But I think Steve is right. Their messaging is going to be very on point. They're going to have their own version of MAGA, while around the little part that they want to protect, they're going to be happy to get on the pace that currently Great Britain is in.
Deace show bingo continues to hit buy, sell, or hold. Buy.
Oh, that's going to buy regardless of whether we have all the other.
Correct.
We are in open spiritual warfare now, and so there's going to be all kinds of events that just don't make sense, that seem very random, or where's that coming from? Okay. I mean, Tucker out there talking about the fact he thinks the U.S. government actually communes with demons. Frankly, that's as good of an explanation for everything as there is, to be honest with you. Okay. So, okay.
Americans reach social and cultural fatigue once more with Democrats while still facing an economic stalemate spurring a Vance presidency.
Well, I can make the case, if that continues to happen, that's how you won't get a Vance presidency. I can make that case. Okay. But understanding what you think that means, okay, I will buy because because of what I think you think that means. All right. But I'm just going to tell you, though, it's hard to run on. We ran on this theme 4 years ago, and you don't think we adequately addressed it. So we're just going to run on it again with different people. You know what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. Like, if it doesn't seem like we're addressing the very message that's in that post, I don't think that makes it any easier for J.D. Vance to get elected, or any Republican for that matter, to get elected the president of the United States in 2028. But since I understand, at least I think I understand what you think that means, I'll buy according to your premise, since it's your post, not mine.
True, but the fatigue also has to do with the faces that represent the party. And right now there is nobody that's remotely as charismatic or as intelligent as J.D. Vance. And so I'll buy what you're saying.
October 16th of this year, quote, "This idea that American citizens don't have the talent to do great things, that you have to import a foreign class of servants and professors to do these things, I reject that." Vice President J.D. Vance, October 16th, 1 month ago. Yeah. That's the right message. Yeah, that one. That's the one. It's also the most moral one and the correct one. That's why it's right. Yeah.
All right, let's go to this. Joe Pop has a rather long one. I'm just going to boil it down really fast. We need to make the old school filibuster great again. The thought here, if I can distill it down into a thought, we need to make the filibuster great again, get rid of the silent filibuster or drive-by filibuster, and actually make the filibustering party pay a physical, meaning you have to get up there and speak for hours and hours and hours, and political cost for holding up whatever legislation they're trying to hold.
100% buy. Hard buy. So essentially, we're going to actually have a filibuster. Filibuster, okay? Not whatever the hell it is we currently have, okay? So we're going to have a filibuster, or we're not going to have one. I like that. I'm in. I'll buy.
I'll buy, but the fact that we have this conversation about many other things, the fact that we even have to have this conversation is indicative of a far deeper problem with what the Senate currently is, who wants to be in the Senate, and why the 17th Amendment happened at all, and why states aren't picking senators instead of the popular vote. So even if this happened, I buy like Steve is, but so much is now systemically wrong. I just don't think it's the fix you think or hope it would be.
Connor B. has this post from Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. Great to join the World Economic Forum and Vanderbilt University to share why Tennessee continues to be the top state for companies to innovate and grow. Of course, Bill Lee was out there last week. New Yorkers, welcome to Tennessee. Connor B., buy, sell, or hold. We need something darker than Vanta Black in Tennessee.
I'll let you take this one first.
Well, this is perfect. I mean, this is what we're talking about. There's just when the governor of Red State, Tennessee, is saying things like this, it just begs the question. Like, our leaders they're clearly not philosopher kings that Socrates was talking about. They're not asking the questions about economia. They're just not. It's all widgets. It's trying to make the train. One side is trying to make the trains run on side, while the other side is arguing that train tracks are a symbol of oppression and colonialistic blah, 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 blah. Yeah. No one really wants, for reasons. It doesn't pay well enough. It's boring to them. But very few want to have the conversations about the good, the true, and the beautiful. Steve just got done saying something about, well, it's obviously the more moral messaging. That doesn't interest people these days for all kinds of reasons. It doesn't even interest people in the church. I mean, so this is perfectly on brand with what Steve has been trying to talk about the last 3 days. And hey, it's time we got there again, because ultimately, Steve, your analogy about trying to just take this back to New York in 1990, just to slow things down, that happened. We've had several months of that now, but sooner or later, are we going to be a shining city hill again or not? And Bill Lee, I don't think he cares.
So that's everything you guys just did there. I agree with. Because of what I said earlier about open spiritual warfare. Let me rephrase. Everything you guys just said, I agree with. Full stop. Okay? But I'm going to sell on the off chance that given the infighting that has happened there at the WEF over the last year with Klaus Schwab and his ouster and everything else, I'm going to sell on the highly unlikely. Do not bet on it. Do not hold your breath, because you would prefer to live, and suffocating yourself is a sin. Okay? But on the remote, scant chance that they feel as if they have to leave some of those elements of who they are as a forum behind, or they're going to go extinct in this environment. I don't believe that is what is occurring. I don't. I just want to make that very clear. But I'm leaving open the possibility that not everything we're looking and seeing in the scene realm is as obvious as we think it is. because of the amount of spiritual warfare that's taking place.
Next, we go to this. Just as serious. Red 5 says shorts and jackets are an acceptable cold weather ensemble.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah, bye. You bet.
I will sometimes
do it frequently. Yeah.
In cold weather where it's not so cold that you got to have everything covered.
Yeah.
I'll do the vest. I'll do the vest with short sleeves.
Yeah, 100%. You bet. Do it all the time, going back and forth to the gym and working out in the wintertime. You bet. 100%. Bye.
Sell. Guys don't have ensembles.
That's the best.
They just get dressed.
That's
okay. That's it.
You know what? I have sinned against you. All right. I take it back. All right. His answer is the right one. Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'm like Dobby. I need to punish myself. Okay. That I seriously considered this proposition rather than immediately rebuke it. Thank you. Appreciate that, my Catholic friend.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Clinton Shaw says separation of church and state simply means that secularism is the only ideology and religion allowed in government, and they can freely discriminate against other religions.
Correct.
Yes.
But it even means worse than that.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, because it's setting the stage for what the new actual religion will be. Secularism is not a sustainable religion. So it's just setting the stage for what the new actual religion will be. And you see that pattern in New York. Right? They tried godlessness on the right with Bloomberg level corporatism, just completely soulless. Godlessness on the left with an open communist Sandinista in Bill de Blasio. And now they are ready now. Now they want something aspirational. Now they want something uplifting and hope-filled. So now comes the new God, Allah. Yes.
Gen X Kid says, I didn't need to see an Islamist elected mayor of New York City or Nick Fuentes interviewed on Tucker to know that the world is upside down. All I needed to see was Pat Gray's set decorated for Christmas before the Deace set was. Buy, sell, or hold. It's an indication the world is upside down.
That's very good.
Do you want to upgrade the set Christmas tree this year?
We can if you want. That's up to you. That's kind of you and Bella do that thing, you know. Whatever you guys want, I'll make it happen. You tell me.
So skinny.
And we do have more room. We do. But it's kind of skinny, like in a Charlie Brown Christmas kind of way too.
Yeah.
You know, I'll leave that up to you guys. You tell me what you want, I'll make it happen. But I'll buy on this. However, in my defense, it's really my defense. I am intending to honor the Deace Erzin Accords of 2023. That Christmas season may begin now, before Thanksgiving, but not prior to November the 15th. I am trying to uphold my end of the bargain and maintain the peace, because blessed are the peacemakers, of course. Hour 2 is next.
This post from Jesse Kelly. I'm not saying I have intel on this because I have none, but a horrifying thought just went through my head. What if all this we need more H-1B talk is them prepping the ground for a coming immigration bill that we're not going to like?
Yeah, see, something's going on, man.
I'm telling you, if
Wally, something's going on.
This is how you permanently split our base. And we will not be able to do Charlie Kirk revival, because the only alternative to these people is reactionary retardation. This is how it happens. This is everything here is exactly what happened in Europe. Exactly. The only difference is the church in our country is still way stronger. Even in its diminished capacity, it is still way stronger than the church in Europe was when this all happened. That's the only difference. But the same patterns they're all the same. Everything else is the same. Back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre, I am Steve Deace. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please also subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, please subscribe to our podcast. And if you are, thank you, because you're the biggest chunk in our audience for sure. And if you do that, you know for sure that every time we do a new episode, it's for sure there in your podcast feed. If you're on Apple iTunes, that's where most of you are. Click follow these days, not subscribe. They don't offer that option anymore. But they do still give you the option of leaving us 5-star reviews. And you can do that at Apple, all the various platforms. Tens of thousands of you guys have done this for our show. Pardon me. Thank you for each and every one. They are all appreciated, as are Kexi cookies sitting out there on the counter, Todd.
Thank you to Corey from Minnesota for those, by the way.
Thank you, Corey in Minnesota. You've got a pumpkin loaf out there waiting for you, brother.
All right, I'll bring it home.
Yeah.
Got a wife who loves that stuff.
I don't know how. Make sure you understand how fortunate you are that you're going to be able to indulge in that. Because
I'm truly grateful.
You should be.
Coattails and all things.
Indeed. Because Kexi is like grandma's house on Christmas morning. Real ingredients. Real butter, pure vanilla, ingredients you can actually pronounce. Real flavor, every cookie, every baked good, handcrafted. They send them to you fresh, ship them, seal them straight to your door. Anywhere in the country, you can't beat it. I love them. They are phenomenal. All right. Use the code DACE15. You'll get 15% off your order when you go to Kexi.com, Kexi. Kexi, Kexi.com. Use the code DACE15 for 15% off your order. It's the gift that doesn't get regifted. All right. In fact, it's the gift that if you buy them for other people, they may not get them. All right. Because let me try one of these. Then try them all. Kexi.com, code DACE15 for 15% off your order. All right. Coming up, bottom of the hour, Daniel Horowitz will be here with us. Let's continue on with some buy, sell, or hold, Aaron.
Let's continue with Michael Relicki, who says Islam is positioning itself around the world, not just in the West, but well enough to mount a religious war, potentially even soon.
Well, I mean, this is what Islam's been doing since its inception. Now, there are more sophisticated ways to launch a religious war, like what Mamdani just pulled off in New York City, for example. But, I mean, Islam, again, the tension within Christianity is to what extent does Christ call us to acquire and seek earthly dominion. And this has been debated all throughout the centuries. You know, monks when Rome was the only church, basically, the monks went to monasteries taking vows of poverty and chastity, okay? And divorced themselves from the world as it is. After the Reformation, one of the first sects that immediately popped up, the Anabaptists, that's where your Mennonites and Quakers and Amish come from. They did much of the same thing. They do many of those same things to this very day. All right. So there has always been a tension within Christianity about how much do we seek out the dominion of this world in anticipation of the kingdom to come, right? That's a debate we've been having internally amongst one another. What does that really mean? It's the exact opposite debate in Islam. The debate is not about whether to seek out supreme dominion of the earth, but simply the methodology of doing so. All right. So the methods can be more sophisticated in this day and age. You can just, hypothetically speaking, buy a handful of prominent influencers if you wanted to do that with all your oil money. I mean, you could if you wanted to, I guess. Just, hypothetically speaking. You could also, buy politicians. You could take over America's greatest city the old-fashioned way, win the election. So this war can be waged in lots of different ways. But in general, you are correct because it's always been correct. It's the entire premise of Islam. It's dominionist in its nature. So bye.
Absolutely. Bye.
Moving on, is this from Shrugging Echoes? Republicans in Congress are more likely to fund the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare subsidies in the next few months than they are to pass any meaningful conservative, significant Trump executive order codifying legislation before the midterms. We kind of already had this one, but is it more likely they actually fund the Obamacare subsidies?
I don't think there's actually much of a debate about this.
Bye.
I mean, I may hate to say that, but I don't. What is that something new? This has been a sunk cost. I mean, I didn't. Is this something new? I don't know. I'm asking.
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, they held out in the shutdown. I think that's maybe what they're getting at here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, the problem. See, here's the problem again. We didn't repeal Obamacare when we had the chance. All right, and so because of that, now it's our issue. The issue is our albatross. Now we own it. We wear it. So here we are.
Andrew Sexton says, after 1 year, Trump's top cabinet picks are Rubio, Kennedy, Hegseth, and Bessent. The biggest disappointments are Bondi and Patel.
That's 95% right, so I'll buy. I was never very high on Pam Bondi. Patel, just based on what I don't know him at all. Based on what I've heard from people I know that know him, at this point, I just have to assume some dark people have gotten to him, or he's compromised in some way. I just don't even know what else to say. Here's all you need to know about Patel. If I'd have gone back in January after he got nominated, if I would have said whatever's gone on the last year is his record, would anybody have been accepting of that at the time?
No.
Would it have lined up with any of his pre-appointment rhetoric whatsoever?
No.
Like the interviews he gave in depth to Glenn here at the Blaze, the interview he gave in depth to Benny Johnson, for example. Okay. I don't even think it lines up with the interview he gave Joe Rogan in May, which was his first attempt to kind of, resuscitate himself. Okay. So at this point, I think you just have to assume he's just, he's taken advice from some dark forces there within the swamp, or he's compromised in some way and just can't live up to all of that rhetoric. I don't know what else. I don't know. Tell me what other assumption there is to make. Is there? I'm open. I don't want to assume those things, but tell me what else it might be. We're a year into this now. A year. Right. Almost the entire calendar year has gone by. So,
and their failures are all the worse. Is that the economic stuff we're talking about? While it would still be frustrating to people, what people wanted as much as an improved economy, if not more, was consequences, accountability, real justice on any number of fronts. Those are the two people in charge of giving it to you, and they're the ones that are the greatest failures, which then makes every other problem more likely to have weight that pulls people down, instead of saying, you know what, we're getting what we need over here. So yeah, the economy isn't going to fix itself in a day. They're not going to have that level of patience when they see this level of failure on those fronts.
The only absolution for Patel I can come up with is that he was just BSing us from the beginning, and many of our assumptions about our own government are wrong, and he just oversold us to gain the position that he had, and we've just been wrong, and things have been operating much more on the up and up than we could have ever possibly imagined. And we've just been wrong. What we've seen with our own eyes and heard with our own ears and suspected with our own brains just isn't the truth of the matter. And he can't come out and tell us that because you don't want to insult your own base and say things like there's not enough talented Americans to take jobs. You don't want to do stuff like that as a general rule. Not a good practice politically. That's, to me, I think that's the only benign, and that's not very benign or innocent, but it's the most one I could think of.
Let's go to this one. Throw harder, faster. Steve Deace is more jealous of Candace Owens than Lindsey Graham is obsessed with eggplants.
Why would Lindsey Graham be obsessed with eggplants?
Throw harder, faster.
Sure. No. I mean, I have no idea why Lindsey Graham would be obsessed with eggplants. Is that some kind of sodomite reference I'm not aware of? Or
of a non-incel dudes that are just obsessed with that Borg queen is just insane.
Now, is it possible that there is no point to Lindsey Graham being obsessed with eggplants, and so that's why he said that statement, because maybe people think I'm jealous of Candace in some way, and he's pushing back on that? Is that possible? That's possible, right?
The eggplant. Do I need to explain this?
No, let's walk away.
So wait, don't explain it. Don't, okay? Because I really don't want to know. But you're telling me there is a connection here? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
There is some kind of scandalous, obscene, filthy connection here.
Well, I don't know specifically with Lindsey Graham, but
in general, as a homo trope, Well, is that what we're saying? It's some kind of a homo trope?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then, okay. If that's, I was not aware of that whatsoever. Okay. Was not aware. All right. So in that case, then I will sell.
Buy, sell, or hold on anytime you criticize somebody. Anytime you ask questions of the question askers, that automatically means that you are jealous of the question askers. Buy, sell, or hold.
I'm going to sell. But if that's the standard, then I guess that just means Candace is just jealous of all the people that she's smearing and slandering at the moment. Then, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Jealous of Erica Kirk. Jealous of TPUSA Faith, jealous of Charlie, jealous of Ben Shapiro, just jealous of everybody then at that point, right?
Yes.
Okay. If that's the standard, I guess, right? Okay.
Nailed it.
Ken Kraft says this is the last year for the Rockefeller Christmas tree. By this time next year, any display of Christmas paraphernalia in New York City property will be deemed Islamophobic.
It'll be too soon. I think this is too coordinated, too systemic. I'm going to sell on that. The plan is working. They are subversively taking over. There's no point going full fundy on this yet. Not now. Eventually, the Islamists won't be able to restrain themselves. It's inherent to their ideology, but it's too early right now. The plan is in place and it is working.
I'll buy. Like, I'm the one who predicted next 9/11 next year, 25th anniversary. It's gonna be led off with an Islamic call to prayer.
Oh, I think there's 100% chance of that. I'll buy for sure. Yeah, you bet.
Mike Drogo says Gen Z can actually use the 50-year mortgage to our favor, get a 50-year to buy your first house, then refinance into a 30 or 20-year a few years later. This is exactly what the Trump administration had in mind for the first-time home buyers. The problem is you're not really getting into serious equity until about year 30.
Correct. You're taking on twice the amount of interest load, which means your equity amortization actually slows down, is what it means.
And if you don't have super low, like historically low interest rates like what we had 3 or 4 years ago, you're going to be, it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
This is where too smart by half people of the right, they totally ignore the economy of real life and what matters. And they just look at 50 years of life as a widget thing. It's a road to nowhere. You look at what you think you're trying to control over 50 years. Look at what we are 5 years removed from COVID, man. I mean, come on, have we not, and transgenderism, we're in the middle of this. Have we not learned anything?
I mean, let's be fair. Conceivably, using a 50-year mortgage similar to an adjustable rate mortgage, which is kind of what they're saying here, if you were assured that rates, if you were confident that the rates trends were going to greatly decline, it would work.
That's my
somewhat
point.
Like what they're claiming, okay? But there's no way to confidently know that whatsoever because it's the massive accruing of debt that are the reasons why we have the affordability problems we have and the inflation issues that are pre-existent, that the rates were increased to counterset and offset, okay? And so that's why we can't know that. All right, we can't know that.
You talk all the time about we don't have a shared reality anymore. Being able to do that counts on most people in this country actually wanting to be Americans, appreciating their fellow Americans on some level. We don't have any of that.
But I wanted to, because that's not insane what that person is articulating. It could conceivably be used in practice, but it requires the activation of variables that we have no control over whatsoever, right? And so what you're let me finish and I'll let you last, I promise. So what essentially your argument, while understandable, is at this point is the home mortgage version of, I just got laid off from my job. I've got one paycheck left. I know I have that money. Let me go to Vegas and bet it all on black. I mean, it could hit. It's not a 0% chance, right? I mean, it could hit.
Yes.
That could work.
Yes.
But are you in control of those variables?
I get
no.
But
so the odds. So why you would risk your last check on doubling something that you have no control over is not wise.
But it's even worse because
it's possible, but it's not wise.
Those variables are necessary, though, for that to work. We're trying to systematically destroy those variables right now.
Well, because those variables are why we even have to have this debate in the first place. Yes. Yeah.
Buy, sell, or hold.
Go ahead, Aaron.
No. If you're going to say something else on this.
Yes. Let me say this. I don't know the age of the person who wrote this. I have no issues with young adults whatsoever trying to come up with ways to shortcut and game the system because they watch their parents and grandparents do it for the last generation and then stick them with all the debt. And in many cases now saying, I'm not going to leave an inheritance to my kids. Okay? And I've been saying that since the whole student loan debates a few years ago. Yeah, you're right. You go tell the young generation to work to continue to pay for your Medicare and Social Security, but they can't get their student loans repaid. And then you wonder why you've got resentment. Okay.
I get the resentment. we keep talking about it and have been for a while. This is going to be the first generation of Americans that don't have the same standard, or actually have a worse standard of living. Then this math, you can't think like that anymore.
You can't. But if you're not being offered the proper math, you'll then go to survival math. You see what I'm saying? If we're not the people that will engage in the math required to fix these issues, people are not going to then just say, Todd, and you know this, they're not just going to sit there and say, well, then I guess we'll just embrace the suck. No, they're going to say, you know what, then what are the new convoluted ways that my generation can game the system and scam the system to compensate for what the previous generations did to me and left me with?
But I don't think that math he's doing is survival math. I think he's doing his grandpa's math right there. And it's not going to work.
Except he saw his grandpa walk out with a house and a family. But a whole bunch of debt that he doesn't have to pay because he can just pass on to his grandkids.
2 generations later, there's nothing to pass on, so that math isn't going to work.
I'm not arguing his point for him.
I know.
I'm arguing why he thinks that. And that's not illogical to think that way when the options are we won't do what is righteous. So then instead we won't fix the thing, but we will import 750,000 foreigners to take the best skilled, highest paid jobs we have from. We'll do that for you.
I'm not saying this guy thinks that, but if it's a young Gen Z guy in that generation, you can, simultaneously thinking that and then having Nick Fuentes thoughts. See, that's you're schizophrenic then. It's one or the other.
Well, of course you're schizophrenic because the previous generations rallied around the flag and told you to go to church and everything else, and they divorced more than any previous generation of Americans. They had more kids out of wedlock than any previous generation of Americans. They aborted more of their children and sacrificed them on the altar of their own convenience than any previous generation of Americans. They made pornography even before the internet the most lucrative industry in America, and from an entertainment standpoint, than any previous generation. Should I continue on?
You're right about
They completely surrendered every institution. Yep. They made sure now that it's not just that you're going to learn where the clitoris is in the 4th grade. Now you're going to learn how to actually bend over and be sodomized by kindergarten, and we're going to put it in an animated book form for you, and we're going to do that now. They did all that. And so I understand why the next generation is like, well, then I guess we're effed, man. So is there a way to reprogram the Kobayashi Maru in my favor? I'm telling you there's not. That's where I do agree with you. There isn't. But I don't blame you for trying, because you aren't getting a lot of better options on the table. Right now, the guy who came to power and won 3, in my opinion, 3 presidential elections, speaking to the angst, the existential angst that the last 10 minutes of you and I's back and forth is about, is just last night said we don't have enough talented Americans to get paid the best jobs. So at that point, I'm not going to blame absolutely anybody for thinking, well, then what's my Control-Alt-Delete here? What's my cheat code out of this? I can't blame you for that.
Oh, do you want another shrimp on the Barbie here? I just saw this. According to Kelley Blue Book, the market for $20,000 cars. $20,000 cars. Those are used cars, and at least if they've been manufactured by and large out since 2015, is extinct. $20,000 car market extinct.
So let's go back to what I just said. I don't blame anybody for thinking, then what's my cheat code then? Because playing by the rules, the other generations didn't have to do them. And now they want to close the door on the way out and tell me I have to? In the mess they left me? I don't blame you for that.
We don't have a worldview that we can default to cheat codes.
I agree. And they won't work. We're too far gone. They will not work. I agree with that too. But I don't blame anybody for thinking, maybe I need to see if they don't work first.
Buy, sell, or hold. Bill Pulte attributed the one coming up with the 50-year mortgage idea as it's currently being talked about. He also posted this morning, portable mortgages are being investigated. Buy, sell, or hold. Portable mortgages are a better idea than 50-year mortgages.
So this is what you can take an existing mortgage and apply it to
your balance and your rate and apply it to a new home.
100% better. Yeah.
The banks would hate it.
Well, that's one of the reasons why it would be 100% better.
Exactly.
But secondly, also it's 100% better because that was the previous proposal was a 0.0.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to get better.
Yeah. So even if it's just a 1%er, we're at 100% improvement of where we were before. Yes. But in general, if we're not going to be, if there's no limited government constituency anymore, And I'm pretty confident demographically that constituency is waning. Then the argument ought to be, where will government be used to actually empower the governed? Like what I said last hour. And you and I continue this conversation in the hall. Trump ought to do a speech tomorrow, like JFK did on, we're going to send someone to the moon. By the time I'm out of here, we're closing this gap so that all those high-skilled jobs we're importing foreigners for go to Americans. Biggest investment ever into these kinds of tech trainings, skilled programs. We'll create these kinds of tech trainings where you don't have to go get your gay race communist degree. You can just go right to learning this particular skill set to work in those battery factories. I mean, that ought to be JFK, we're going to the moon. That ought to be Reagan, we're going to build the largest defense arsenal and bankrupt the Soviet Union. There ought to be that level. World War II, ramp up. We're going to, heavily invest in our manufacturing base to make sure that we can keep up with the war machine. Uncle Sam wants you. There ought to be that level of initiative to something like that then. Not become even more of a wage slave. Okay? Sometimes I look around and it's like we are. Nick Fuentes doesn't have to be on every social media platform. He can be banned to my mall. Because much of what we represent's the best recruitment arm he could ever possibly hope to have. What we are offering to people in too many cases will make folks go and look for voices like that. They don't have to be rampant. You'll go find voices like that. You have to offer the next generation something more than slit your throat or we'll do it for you. We got to offer a better deal than that. And when that's the deal on the table, don't be surprised when they go run into people whose entire shtick is just verbally slitting throats. Because that's the deal they've been offered. You want them to embrace more than that? You want them to aspire to more than that? Offer them more to aspire to. Hey, we wrecked every institution. We let the devil literally take them all over. I got mine. Checking out. Probably not even going to leave you an inheritance. Go get him, kid. That's Weimar Republic kind of stuff, man. Before we continue on, in these unprecedented times,
bang.
Make sure you've got a real estate agent that you can trust, the kind that you will be recommending to those around you that you care about for years to come. Where would you find them? The name says it all. realestateagentsitrust.com is where you can go, whether you want to get across town or across the country. Ultimately, where you want to get is across the finish line of what can be one of the most stressful things you'll ever do in your life, and that's when things aren't as unprecedented as they are right now. All right, so get an agent whose track record of success has been verified, otherwise we wouldn't recommend them to you. And a lot of times, you've got values in common with them as well, because they're right here in the same Blaze audience as you. realestateagentsitrust.com is where you want to go. That's realestateagentsitrust.com.
Next up, we go to Grizzly Chathams, who says Trump should let the market crash as soon as possible while he can still put the blame on Biden and have time to tout a recovery. Doing this will also likely prevent a mysterious crash right before the 2026 midterms.
I'm going to sell. It's too late for that. That should have happened 9 months ago. It's too late for that now. You can't be on the record touting all these he's been touting for months record gains in the market and claiming that as his win. Then you're going to turn around and let it crash. Well, they're going to say that happened on your record. You see, your strategy's not bad. Again, I don't blame y'all trying to find the cheat codes here, okay? Hey, guys, there's got to be a thermal exhaust port. There's a Death Star parked out front. Can we do something before it just blows the planet up? Does anybody here on the show have any problem with the instincts of trying to figure out where the thermal exhaust port is, given where the Death Star currently resides? Do we understand the instinct of people going for the thermal exhaust port, trying to find where it's at?
If that's the only option they have, I understand.
And it is the only option in many cases you do have, because the system will not offer you anything better. So I don't blame you for thinking this way. And I would have bought this like in February. It's too late now. You're too much touting that you built the stock market. It's your thing. You own it. You bought it. That's all because of you, and you took over, and it's the greatest economy ever. Letting it crash now, that's on your resume, man. And then they'll turn around and say, by the way, we were going to do a 2026 economic slowdown, but you kind of did it for us. So thank you. Now, you're not wrong in terms of strategy, but your timing, it's too late for that now. Way too late. So.
Buy, sell, or hold this take. Just came across my feed. It's from Eric Sammons, editor-in-chief at Crisis Magazine. That's a Catholic magazine, right, Todd?
Right.
Quote,
I know who
talking
Eric
about the Laura Ingraham clip with Trump talking about H-1Bs. It's politically stupid of Trump to say we don't have talent here. Of course we do. But I wish conservatives wouldn't be so defensive about this. In my 15 years in software development, the Chinese and Indian programmers were far more talented and hardworking on average than the Americans. After all, we know our education system is broken, and we know many kids are raised to feel entitled rather than to work hard to earn their pay. This has an impact on the American workforce. The solution, however, isn't to import a bunch of foreigners. We need to change how kids are raised and educated, like conservatives have been saying for years. Buy, sell, or hold that take.
I don't. I would buy all of it.
That's why.
And this is the other problem too. Trump's been president for 6 years. 5 years. He's been president for 5 years. If you go around saying, well, we don't have enough skill, what the hell you been doing for 5 years is what the other side's going to say. You didn't do anything about it then.
This is almost verbatim, though, what Vivek Ramaswamy said over Christmas last year and got absolutely nuked for it online.
Right. Well, because Vivek tried to rebrand himself. That's the stuff, because Vivek had been saying stuff like that for 20 years, then cynically tried to rebrand himself. Let me run down and do videos with Laura Loomer and rebrand myself as Mr., lifelong MAGA, when I was writing books criticizing Trump just a couple of years before I ran for president, right? That's because he got caught into that vortex. All right. But ultimately, we're in charge of the system right now. What are we doing? What are we fundamentally doing to address those issues then? What are we doing?
Revival or bust.
Says what?
You cannot run on, I'm the guy who's going to fix your generational angst, and then turn right around after you've been president for 5 years and say exactly what was in that post. You see what I'm saying? That post is correct, but this guy got elected to not make that as correct as it used to be. So here's something we can do then. Minimum salary, $200,000 a year for an H-1B visa. And we have a 3-year moratorium. No more for the next 3 years. And then after 3 years, the program is canceled out. And over the next 3 years, biggest investment ever. We're just printing money. If we're just going to print money, can we run some money off the copy machine to train some Americans to make some friggin' batteries? Can we do that maybe? Is that a possibility, do you think? If we're just running money off the copy machine, I think we can train Americans to make some friggin' batteries for $150,000 a year. Anybody? Bueller. Anybody? So over the next 3 years, biggest investment in this kind of skill training in American history. H-1Bs have to be paid foreigners at least $200,000 a year. Then the program's X'd out in 3 years once we've reached a critical mass. And we're going to start with the 1.5 million people unemployed right now with bachelor degrees or higher. We're going to start with them. That also helps us with suburban voters and college-educated voters who have been voting against us the last few elections. Tell me where the L is here. Tell me where it is politically. Tell me where I'm wrong. You can't. So why aren't we doing this kind of stuff then? I guess we can, show off the ballroom to Laura Ingraham. I guess we can do that instead. Damn, man. We got to be better than this. Back here on the Steve Deace Show, courtesy of our friends over at Chirp. Their mission is simple. Bringing relief to as many people as possible so that you can feel better, restore your energy, and make self-care simple with a category of product called Relief. Innovative, professional-grade therapies that you can use at home. Doctor-trusted, FDA-cleared devices that are just like the clinic treatments, but without all the expensive appointments. There's the Chirp Contour, one of the most popular gizmos. Used that on my back a couple weeks ago and my neck. I really like the rolling power massager, the mini, the RPM. Aaron about a week or so ago, gave a rave review to the Halo that he has tried. Those are just a few of the products now that you can try and sample yourself. And you'll get 10% off site-wide when you do over at gochirp.com/Steve. CHIRP, like a birdie chirp. gochirp.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve for 10% off site-wide with the promo code Steve at gochirp.com/Steve. Well, I don't know that we need Daniel right now because I gave you quite a bit of woe and lamentation here in the last 10 minutes or so. But let's bring Daniel on nevertheless. So we are going to maybe tap more into your policy guru side of things this week, Dan, if you don't mind. Because there's a lot of angst on our side right now, and I think a lot of it very deservedly about the economic messaging, the economic record. They brought Stephen Miller, your old buddy, out last night. And it reminded me, where's he been like for the last 2 weeks? He's probably the best messenger in the White House, and these issues are his life's work. No one knows this stuff better than him. Okay, and regardless of Trump has strengths as a politician, obviously, but when you're literally Glenn Ross incarnate, you're not the empathy messaging guy when things are scuffling, right? Okay, it's just not in your MO to give ground, to not always be closing with the best set of steak knives of all time, right? So I thought they need more Stephen Miller talking right now, maybe less of Trump right now. That's a messaging thing, though. On the policy side of things, are there 2 or 3 things that they can be doing that would pass, that we'd have the votes to do, that would not, end up getting immediately bogged down in 9 weeks to 9 months of judicial bureaucracy, that they're not doing? And if they are, what would you recommend?
So, Steve, I have 4 things on my list. Just a couple of ground rules I got to set out before this. Number 1, it's late in the game. Mm-hmm. This is, and I don't mean to black pill or look backwards. I'm always forward looking, but this is why I've been doing this show since the day after last November 4th, because I saw this coming. I saw this coming a mile away. You mentioned Stephen Miller. We saw this in the first term. You start off the first weeks with Stephen Miller, the first few months. You have all these executive orders. It's all about fulfilling what the base wants, the campaign promises. But they get expended very quickly on executive orders. A lot of the bigger, more transformational ones, or most of them, wind up getting bogged down in the courts, a lot of them permanently. Other stuff sort of, some of it's exaggerated, doesn't really land. And then the bad stuff starts setting in. Except the difference is 17, 18, 19, 20, that era of the economy was great. Trump was handed a grenade with the pin taken out. Our side was like, we have a permanent majority. And I was like, dude, you actually did pretty horribly down ballot, even at the peak of your presidential performance. And now you own the only element that actually got you in there. So what I was saying from day one is this point. I said, look, there's no middle ground. I even said, and I will get there, relevance counselor, but I said a while ago that, look, there was a time 2017-ish, I was like, let's focus on immigration, social issues, put the debt aside. The problem is COVID ensured you can't do that. This is not, our grandkids' problem. This is a now problem. You can't run away from it. Either you'll get consumed by it or you solve it.
Meaning when you print 80% of all U.S. bills in circulation since the dawn of the country in the last, since 2020, we're beyond a sustainable level of debt load and can kicking now. We're feeling the immediate effects of it is what you're saying.
Yes. And in 23, 24, we were starting to break through to the public that the debt wasn't some futuristic, nerdy issue. It wasn't a government balance sheet issue. It was a now issue, and it's a you issue. It's an us issue. Mm-hmm. Biden inflation, Biden inflation, Biden inflation. That was the message. We could have jumped in right away and said, Trump could have been honest with the public and said, look, it is the very programs that are sustaining people is what is making it self-fulfilling and making life unaffordable. We can't print the money. I'm not going to promise you handouts. I can't compete with that. I will promise you an economy that you can earn enough and there's enough availability of decent jobs, preferably one income if you prefer, that you could maintain your parents' standard of living on that. And you won't need a welfare state. You won't need endless subsidies. And I proposed a series of 2 to 3 budget reconciliation bills, or Trump himself wants to blow up the filibuster anyway, so it's even easier, but whatever method you want to use, and to come with that. Instead, he did 2 things. He did the BBB, which nobody even remembers what was in it and how to message it, a random assortment of tax provisions, and then the tariffs. And the way he did the tariffs in conjunction with not doing any of this other stuff, he wound up washing away Bidenflation as the moniker and owning the inflation, whether it was caused or exacerbated by the tariffs or not. The public now thinks it was. Okay, so that's where we are now, and it's going to be hard to socially to reverse that. One final caveat, I don't have anything, Steve, that could pass, if that's your answer. 10 years, 5 cycles worth of endorsing every single incumbent against our candidates, it takes its toll. And I don't know what you do, but here's what I would try. Number 1 is healthcare, Obamacare. Here's the good news, Steve. You can't run away from it. The subsidies, the extra subsidies from Biden are expiring. So you're thrust into this. The prices are going to go up. Now, the prices are already up, but they're masked a little bit by the subsidies. Mm-hmm. So you either try to compete with the left to get us even more into inflation, and then you won't even be rewarded for it anyway, or you could be honest with the American people, and you repeal Obamacare. You can't just say no to the Biden subsidies. You have to repeal the coverage mandates and the entire marketplace that makes it unsustainable and unaffordable. I would keep Medicaid expansion, even though I don't want to, but I tell the public, look, we have Medicaid expansion. That's covered. We need something for
meaning if
for
you
the
can't
middle
afford
class.
If you can't afford a plan and you need emergency coverage, we have an option
we
for
have
you.
Medicaid.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is above the 70 million freaking people on Medicaid.
Yep.
So let's have a system of choice and competition for those people. And I would throw in, so full repeal, I'd throw in HR 810, which is Chip Roy's bill, that makes every single thing, premiums, deductibles, out-of-pocket, health sharing ministries, direct primary care, tax deductible in your HSAs, and that your employers, rather than giving that to the cartel and getting the employer tax exclusion, can also get for that. That would open up a revolution. And I don't know if you'd win or not win, but we couldn't do worse than we're doing, and you would solve the problem. Healthcare, that's 1. Number 2, housing. Ban the Federal Reserve and HUD from securitizing housing. The 2.5 trillion mortgage-backed securities and all of the HUD shenanigans is what has created the asset bubble. Housing is not an ATM. It's not a bank account. Housing is a critical consumer good that people need to have a roof over their head. You want to go and make it a bubble, then you get a bubble. Mm-hmm. You want to reduce housing prices, let housing prices go down and stop turning it into a bubble for baby boomers. And by the way, Steve, this is a great message for the rising generation. Look, I want to build an income-based economy, not an asset-based economy. The market will go down, housing prices will go down, and don't save it. We're not against the stock market, but the S&P will not be doing 25% every year. 3, abolish foreign workers and foreign students. And I know this is hilarious given the Laura Ingraham interview, but we're not going to give a hammock a welfare safety net that's extravagant, but we're not going to give you headwinds either. And this is what's driving down wages. This is what's taking away every entry-level job, not just in computers now, but everywhere, in every field. This is probably the easiest sell that's of an issue that's also conservative, and the base is united, and it is just stupefying to me that Trump is going in the other direction. Oh, colleges will close? Good. They'll have to clamor for students. Mm-hmm. And you know what happens? Prices go down for tuition, in addition to a greater availability of jobs. Part of this message that I'm not going to give you handouts, but I'm going to give you the opportunity for jobs. Now, look, I understand there's a significant part of the country that wants handouts, but this is all we have to work with. And you have to speak to a greater good of a certain percentage to get to 51% who want this sort of vision. Number 4 would be a gold bill, Kevin Freeman's bill in the states, but federally, that we're going to recognize transactional gold as a currency. Therefore, it won't be subject to taxes like your gold ETF, and you can transact with an account that is backed by gold, so you have your own gold standard that will hedge against inflation. A 5th thing I would love for him to reverse his policies on AI data centers and speak to the land grab and land ownership and ranches and go against big tech. But to wrap it up, the problem is the president, unfortunately, has staked out the opposite position on a lot of these issues.
All right, I have a follow-up question for you on the point you made there at the end after I talk about smart credit. All right, it's called the holiday credit dip, and it hits millions of people every year. Most don't even see it coming. The holidays roll in, you swipe your credit card out a few extra times, your balance goes up, and your credit score, it drops. That's where smart credit comes in. Smart credit helps you stop the dip before it happens. Their patented technology pinpoints exactly which bills to pay and when to maximize your credit score. In fact, the average smart credit user can see an increase of 34 points in just 30 days. So maximize your score now, and you could save big in the new year. While you're out spending holiday and spreading holiday cheer, set yourself up for your smartest financial year yet with smart credit. Don't wait. Before you take that next swipe, head to smartcredit.com/Steve and start your 7-day trial for just $1. 7 days for just $1 to see if it works for you. That's smartcredit.com/Steve, smartcredit.com/Steve. Individual results may vary and are not guaranteed. All right. You said the president is going the other way. As objectively as you can, what do you think he thinks he's doing that for? Why does he think that will work, going opposite of the direction that you just articulated?
So I don't really think there's enough people in his ear articulating exactly this message. I think he understands the end result of some of the message, like, having an economy where you could have a one-income job, working in a Ford auto factory in Michigan last century, and supporting. They were able to have an average of 2.1 cars per family on that salary. I think he gets that. He doesn't understand how to arrive there. I also think there is a lot of grift. I mean, he's surrounded by a lot of donors. Trump, say what you want about him. His original 2016 message was very much the forgotten man, but now it's very much the glitz. And he thinks of things in terms of big, not little ranches, not small businesses, but big business, $1 trillion market cap, big industries. And that's what he's impressed with. And I think that's where his focus is, all crypto, AI, big tech, Qatar Akbar, and the foreign policy is starting to get influenced by that as well, which is actually more of a fiscal catalyst in my mind. I think he's distracted by a lot of things like that. I think he's surrounded by a lot of yes men, which is why he thinks that prices are down. He genuinely thinks that, by the way. I don't know. I mean, you heard his messaging with Laura Ingraham with foreign labor. I for all the populism, I'm just telling you, what did Trump tell Laura? He said something like, I've always been best at building ballrooms. That's what I'm good at. That's kind of what he's good at.
Good to see you, my friend. There was some moral lamentation there, brother.
Happy to provide.
Oh yeah, you provided. All right. Thank you, man. On brand.
Take care.
Yeah. Gentlemen, your thoughts.
To quote Donkey from Shrek, only a true friend would be that truly honest. Yeah. I mean, right out of the gate. Steve, I know. What is achievable? Nothing. Well, this is psychological and emotional. We just want what we want. What he said at the end, the grifting class, there's all kinds of people who Here's the thing. Let me tell you this way. I get on Sports Pro all the time, but ultimately a Sports Pro is like willing to kind of drive off the cliff because they know at the end of the day on some level, even though it's the most important thing in their life, it's also trivial on some level. So they just don't. But there's all kinds of people who think the exact same way about like college football, driving it off a cliff. That's what Daniel's point really is. They think that way about everything. What can I get out of it? There's no greater good. Why would there be? Again, what limiting principle, what moral framework do we have writ large right now that is anything other than go get yours?
So you're saying there's a chance, Todd?
Aaron, floor is yours.
I'm sympathetic to what we talked about last segment with the soft underbelly of a generation of parental malpractice. I understand that, and there's the same type of debate I see is brewing right now as we speak. The same Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy debate of Christmas of last year is starting to brew and pop up again. Yes, there is a soft underbelly. Yes, there are people, young people, who are legitimate hard workers trying to find and scrape together a good life, the life that their parents had and tried to maybe give to them, maybe not. It's just, there are a lot of things that are probably more complicated than some people make them want to sound, and a lot of things that really are a lot more simple than people want to admit. And I think that's kind of where the rubber meets the road here. Bottom line is, people have to be citizens.
Go hard, Romans 8:28.